Hello crafters, this is Yana Smakula. Welcome back to my channel. My today's video looks at the new die collection by my friend Zsoka Marko with Spellbinders called Winter Tales. I have several card ideas to share with you using my favorite dark, deep, rich colors for a lot of drama and wow. The Winter Tales collection is inspired by Norwegian folk art. I'm a big fan of Scandinavian folk art, and whenever I see anything folk art inspired, I'm immediately drawn to it. It is very distinct, it is very bold, and it is also very different. Zsoka's interpretation of it in her Winter Tales collection is simply amazing. My favorite set from this collection is the Nordic Ornaments. It is the one you see on the screen now. It features two large size ornaments. There's an ornament shadow piece and a decorative insert along with several pieces for you to do the decorating of your ornament. I love this set for the ease of use. The ornaments are very large and they make a fantastic focal point for a card. You basically just add an ornament and there's not much else you need to add to your card. When you create with these dies, you'll want to do some inlay die cutting, meaning take some parts of the ornament cut from one color cardstock and inlay it into another ornament cut from a different color of cardstock. I die cut ornaments from 4 shades of blue cardstock from Spellbinders: Glacier, Raindrop, Partly Cloudy, and Indigo. Next, I used glue and I adhered the detailed die cut ornament onto a shadow ornament piece. I popped all of the die cut pieces out, but I didn't throw them away. I kept them to be able to inlay into the next ornament that I was planning to make. For this one, I used the negatives from the other color ornament and I inlaid them into the open spaces. You can combine several colors. You can go with different color combinations. I went very monochromatic here. You can see I just have various shades of blue, but I do bring in the contrasting red to add in the flowers, and that really makes this die cut pop. I wanted to let you know that this footage was filmed at the end of August, and that's also when I edited this video. And as you can see, the video quality is not as good as in my previous videos, and that's because my main video camera broke. I mentioned that in one of my shorts recently, and I had to purchase a new camera. I did send my old video camera to a repair place, and they gave me a $2,000 quote to fix it, which is pretty astronomical. So I just ordered a new camera instead. My new camera is still shipping. It is still in transit. I ordered it from the United States. So it is still in transit as things do take a very long time to get here with the war in Ukraine, but at least it is on the way. So hopefully I should have my new equipment soon, maybe by the next time there's a release from Spellbinders, and I'm excited to show you my new cards. Right now I'm using my photo camera to film these videos, so at least I have a backup option. It is not very convenient as I can't really see what I'm doing, I can't see what I'm filming, and I'm using a little stepladder to get up and press the record or pause because my camera is so up high on my tripod and I can't really set it up in a different way. So fun times, but at least I'm filming. Now the ornament topper was die cut from gold mirror cardstock and I added it using glue onto most of the ornaments, although later I foam mounted another gold die cut over the one that was glued to give it some dimension, and you'll see that on the finished photos of these cards. Here's another ornament I put together previously. You can see the color concept is the same here, but the placement of the colors is swapped. I also have another ornament cut from black fun foam. Now, this is the Spellbinders pop-up die cutting sheets. They're sold in a mixed pack, and there are a few sheets of black and then a few sheets of white fun foam. This fun foam is simply amazing for die cutting as it pops back up and provides a great support for your die cuts. I'm using scissors and I'm trimming this piece a little bit as I want the foam to not be visible from the side of my ornament. So I'm making this die cut a little bit smaller. The fun foam on the back of the ornament will provide dimension for the ornament on my card as I do not plan to use foam adhesive. And it will also provide like a solid flat layer of dimension, which is actually better than using foam adhesive squares because you can have some sagging when you use them. Next, I dry embossed several panels using the embossing folder that is part of this collection called Ski Lodge. I first foiled the sentiment in matte gold foil in the bottom part of the panel, and then I did some partial embossing. The embossing folder design is absolutely spectacular. It is so gorgeous for winter cards. It reminds me of a beautifully knit sweater that you would wear during the cold winter month. And I just love this folder. I think it's beautiful, and you can emboss it in so many different colors, and I think it would look amazing embossed in any color of cardstock. Now here's how I did the partial embossing. I added the cardstock panel inside the embossing folder, but I did not push the cardstock panel, all the way into the folder. I left the foiled part out, and I also made sure that the panel was aligned with the folder design. I wanted to make sure that everything was centered. Next, I used my Platinum 6 die cutting and embossing machine. Here I have the new universal plates system, but because this is a 2D folder, it's not a 3D folder, it's a flatter folder, you can emboss it using the old plates system that you probably already have if you haven't yet gotten the new universal plates system. Now, I only partially covered the embossing folder with the top cutting plate to avoid having a harsh line on the paper. So see where that folder ends? Give it some room so that it doesn't end right there. Give the top plate some room so it doesn't end where the folder ends on your paper or even past the folder, as that will give you a pretty harsh embossed line in your embossing. It just won't look like it's fading into the background. It will have like a harsh stop to it, unless that's the look that you want, but that's not what I wanted here. I wanted my embossing to sort of fade into flat space where I had the foiled sentiment. Now you might notice that I had yellow tape on the folder. I taped the folder while I was prepping to film this video. You don't need to do this. I just did that as I was planning my video filming process for several days, and I kept like stacking things, so that I didn't forget anything. But again, you don't need to do that. And here's our background. This one is embossed on black, and it looks phenomenal. Now, whenever I make my dark, dramatic background cards, I also try to match the color of the card base to the color of the card front. This way, the finished card looks more professional and finished. So here I have half of a letter sheet of black Spellbinders cardstock, and I'm scoring it at 4¼ inch mark to create a side folding card. I personally prefer top folding cards, as they just stand a little bit better on their own, but I do not have the paper trimmer to cut my paper that way. I have the smaller guillotine trimmer, and I can only cut my paper at the 8½ inch size. That's why I'm making a side folding card. Now, because some of my backgrounds are blue, I'm also making blue card bases. Next, I have a textured card base that I save from my Spellbinders card kits, and I like to use those textured card bases in a different way. I personally don't like those textured card bases for my card bases because they are textured, and it's just my thing. I don't like a textured card base. I want a smooth card base. So instead, I just trim these card bases. I cut about 1/4 inch, and I use the card bases to add extra layers to my card fronts. I know this all sounds very weird, but wait until I explain. Now, this is not something you want to do if you plan to mail your card, as this will obviously add weight and will increase the mailing cost. But for me, because I typically hand deliver my cards, I like to add the extra layers as they help my cards to stand better. And I also like how they make my cards feel in my hand. They feel a little heavier, a little bit more substantial. So I then use the double-sided tape or glue, and I glue the trimmed card base shut. And I then use that as a middle layer between my smooth card base and my front panel. By the way, I'm using the Spellbinders tool-in-one here to help me remove the liner tape from the double-sided adhesive, and I love this tool for that. It makes it so much easier to remove the liner. I don't know how I crafted before without it. I have had it for 2 years now, I think, ever since Spellbinders came out with it, but I don't believe I ever mentioned it here on my YouTube channel. That's why I'm mentioning it now. This tool is it's like a dental pick. So it's not just a pokey tool, but it's a curved pokey tool. Super handy. And again, I love using it to help me get rid of the liner pieces on my double-sided tape. And that makes my card bases for these ornament cards. Next, I just use glue and I adhere the ornaments in the center above the foiled sentiment. And I'm using the grid lines on my magnetic glass mat to help me align the ornaments on the background and make sure that everything is centered. I wanted to add something else to these cards as I felt like they needed something extra. So I die cut sentiments from gold mirror cardstock and black pop-up foam from Spellbinders. I adhered the gold die cut onto the black fun foam, and that created a dimensional sentiment die cut. I used the black fun foam here as the background on my cards is dark. It's either black or navy blue. And if I used white, it would have been too visible. The black just blends with the background a lot better and makes it look a lot more cohesive. I added a little bit of glue in the center of that Christmas die cut and also along the ends to be able to arch it over the bottom part of the ornament. So it is not adhered everywhere, but only in the middle and on the ends. To finish my sentiments, I also foiled the word Merry and I die cut it into a small banner and I added that next to the word Christmas. That really helped to bring the sentiment portion of this card together. Now, the word Merry is larger in size. It's probably twice the size compared to the foiling on the bottom of the panel. And it comes from some of the very first Spellbinders foil sentiment sets. I love the different sizes. The font is the same, but the size is different, and that gives you options. And I love to mix various sizes for a unique look. So here we have two different fonts, and one font is done in a larger and a smaller size, and then the other font is scripty, making a fabulous focal point and helping us create a truly unique sentiment for these cards. Now, speaking of sentiments, the Winter Tales collection comes with a stamp set that is filled with various messages that go really well with the other products in this collection. I did not have the stamp set, so I just used the other sentiments that I had in my stash to create messages for my cards. And by the way, I know I mentioned that the card bases for my cards are black or dark blue. I added a white cardstock panel to the inside of the cards to be able to write my message. I also added fashion gold dots onto the ornament themselves, so onto the flower centers and also the little red flower detail in the center of the ornament. And then I used gold mix gems from Spellbinders to embellish the space around the ornaments and add movement to these cards. Love the result. Now, the shape and the size of the ornament inspired me to try something different and fill the ornament shape with flowers. I used the Holiday Blooms die set from Spellbinders and die cut florals from various shades of blue and red to build a unique pattern inside the ornament. You can take this idea and expand it. You can use other images to fill your ornament in. You can also use a large ornament shape as a placeholder for the sentiment. Perhaps you want to add a large foiled or a large die cut sentiment. You can use the ornament shape to house that sentiment and it is going to look spectacular. Once I had all of the florals added, and by the way, I mentioned that I used the Holiday Blooms, I did combine the blooms from two sets. So the Holiday Blooms, which is this year's set, and then the Christmas Blooms, which is a set from last year. I trimmed any overhang to really contain the pattern within the space of the ornament. This way, it looked as if the pattern was part of the ornament and not like the ornament was decorated with the florals, which is something you totally can do, it's just another look. I used the Circle Illusion 3D embossing folder from Spellbinders. This was released a little earlier this year. And for this folder, you do need to use the new Spellbinders Universal Plate System, or you can try and shim that folder with cardstock to be able to emboss it if you're using the old plates system in your Platinum machine. I embossed a red cardstock panel. I love rich red look. It's not something that you would usually use. I know a lot of people try to stay away from red because it's just so provoking, but I really wanted to use red for this Christmas card. I also die cut another ornament from the same red and adhered my decorated ornament on top. This made my die cut a little bit more sturdy. I have added the ornament topper cut from the same mirror gold cardstock and embellished the ornament using lots of gold gems, especially the smaller size gems, and they filled any gaps that I had on the background and helped make this card a lot more festive, and they added a lot of that wow. Once again, I used fun foam. I went with white here and I adhered it onto the ornament to pop it up and then adhered it onto my embossed background. Now here, because the background is 3D, it has various levels of dimension to it, I used a trick. I have these magnets that came with my magnetic glass mat, and the magnets are fantastic for applying pressure when you need to stick something down. So I just put the magnets onto my ornament to hold it down while that glue was drying. And that was super convenient. I didn't have to hold anything. I just put the magnets on top and that did the trick. I have a link to this glass mat, by the way, and the magnets and all of the other products that I'm using today in my video description below and also on the blog post on my blog. Now here you'll notice that I didn't leave a room for a sentiment, so I opted to make a tag sentiment instead. I foiled Merry Christmas in matte gold foil on coordinating cardstock color, and I cut it out using a tag die. Next, I took some gold thread, this is Diamant from DMC, and I used it to add the tag onto the ornament. I tied it into a pretty bow, and then I just added a dot of glue so that it would all stay put and not come undone. This thread is kind of tricky to work with and it comes undone easily, so I always add a little dot of glue so that it, stays secure. Did I say how much I love the way these cards turned out? The whole collection is simply amazing. Now, because I couldn't stop at just one die set, I wanted to play with all of the dies in this collection. I made additional cards. Here, I used the folk song dies, that's the die set with a bird, and the enchanted garden dies, that's the set with the flowers, to make the patterned card. I have the colorful bird in the center. I did some inlaying here to add pops of red and blue to the glacier cut bird. And next, I added the flowers all around the bird, filling the background in. Now, I still had gaps in the background, and to tie everything together, I used the Spellbinders Peppermint sprinkles. Now, these are not from this release. They were released earlier this year, and they make an amazing filler element. You get a ton of sprinkles in the bag, and you can use these like I'm using here as embellishments, or you can use them as a shaker filler for your shaker cards. I used my crystal katana tool and added the various size and shape sprinkles onto the background anywhere where I saw a gap that needed something extra. They did not make the pattern look busy. I was afraid that they might. Instead, they really tied everything together and added even more color. And the reason they worked so well here is because of the background on this card was black, and the white and the red popped wonderfully on the black cardstock. One last card I have for you featuring this collection is the one with the deer, created using the magical deer dies. Here, I wanted to try using different colors. I went with soft browns and beautiful pinks. I also embellished the deer antlers using the ornament die cuts. I've been using these a lot throughout my cards this year. I added a tiny white flower. I'm thinking, white poinsettias. So I added a tiny white poinsettia onto each ornament to make it a little bit more festive. So this last card doesn't really stick to the Nordic folk art colors and perhaps not even that particular style, but I wanted to show you that you can use other colors with these dies and you can really make them your own. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you found my ideas useful. Thanks so much for joining me today. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.